Welcome back to Mass Appeal. So gluten-free, that's the new craze these days. So today we've got a gluten-free soup recipe for you with Peter Langlois. He's from the Smithsonian Cafe and Chowderhouse. We're making butternut bisque today?
Yes, sir.
Sounds good, but it's gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
Why are so many people talking gluten-free these days?
Well, I think there's probably a faction of people who need it medically, and I think there's another faction of people who think it's sort of a diet craze. I'm not sure that everybody that comes through the door that's looking for it actually requires it. It has the allergy to the wheat, but there's been a big demand for it, a big spike in demand for it, so we've sort of caved in, and we're doing lots of gluten-free soups at our place. So.
I guess it's just like a new eating philosophy, but we're implementing one of those philosophies with the butternut bisque soup.
Yep.
How do we make it?
Very simple recipe, not too many ingredients.
No.
The nice thing is it's very inexpensive to make. The butternut is what we're going to use, but you can obviously use any root vegetables or any of the winter squashes. You can use pumpkin, you can use Hubbard squash, acorn squash, butternut, turnip, carrots, any of those that can be boiled down and pureed, basically can be substituted in this recipe, whatever your favorite is.
I learned about celery root the other day. I'm in love with it now. So it tastes just like celery.
Makes a nice puree, and they use it a lot of different ways.
That's what ends up happening to a lot of these soups that have the potatoes or the hardy winter vegetables. Yep. We blend them up with a blender stick or an immersion blender, right?
Right, and you can use a little bit less thickener that way, which is going to keep the carbs down and that sort of thing. So
what are the ingredients? You have one already boiling up.
I've got the vegetable stock and the butternut in here, kind of pre-started it so that the butternut would be broken up. If you want, you can put in the coriander and the brown sugar, both.
Okay, so we have coriander here.
Yeah, that's the spice. That's the main spice.
And brown sugar. Now, a lot of people are going to look at this and they're going to say, that's a lot of brown sugar. And if they're looking to make some resolutions and eat better,
they can certainly cut back on it. They can use honey instead of brown sugar if you want to use something that's a little less processed and more natural.
And a lot of people these days too, they're just like they're talking about gluten, they're talking about agave nectar and all those things. You could probably use that too.
Yeah, anything like that you can sub in that you're comfortable with, I think is going to work. So
perfect.
And like I said, the nice thing about this soup is it doesn't require quite as much thickener because there's a lot of pulp. The vegetables are very pulpy. What we do is just put a little bit of the thickener in so that it'll hold the cream when it's time to add the cream. So
now I'm intrigued. How did you use one of those immersion blenders?
I didn't. This was just boiled and it breaks up on its own.
So this right here,
that particular squash is very soft. You wouldn't need to. Once it starts to boil, it breaks up very easily.
Because now it's a very hard squash. Now you wouldn't think that you could do that.
Yep. Yeah, and then so this is at the point now where the vegetable is very well pureed. There's not a lot of lumps, and we could add a little bit of the thickener to it. We made a basic roux here, which is 50% rice flour and 50% oil, whatever kind of oil that you like to cook with. Yep.
And that's how you're getting around the gluten, right?
That's the gluten-free part of it. Yep.
Because normally people would use flour and they'd use a lot.
Anything that contains wheat is where the gluten comes from.
Okay, and so anything that has wheat, if you're have a gluten allergy or you're doing the gluten-free, you have to avoid wheat.
You have to stay away from wheat completely. Yep.
Wheats and flours and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
So we're pouring this roux into here.
Yeah, it's going to take very little. We definitely don't need it all.
Now, I see you're using a lot of heavy cream too, which is so tasty. But if people
that's good.
are too much?
No, that's fine.
If people are trying to get a little healthier, is there something you can use instead of heavy cream?
You could make it a little thickener with the thickening agent and use a lighter dairy product. You can use yogurt to cream it out with.
So can you use milk too instead of creams?
You could, yep.
But you're probably going to lose some taste in there too.
Well, it's going to make it a little bit thinner. You're going to lose a little bit of the texture to it, and the thing with milk is it breaks down a little bit easier. So once the soup is hot, if you're going to incorporate milk, generally it probably should be scalded like in the microwave first, and then added into the soup later on.
So and we're going to need
the cream is a little bit more stable, and it doesn't need to be preheated when you add it in.
Hey, so Peter, how long is this going to have to cook for?
This is going to take, you just cook out the thickener for about 10 minutes, and then I'll reduce the heat, let it cool down a little bit, and then add the cream, and we can come back and give it a taste if you want.
Sounds good to me, so don't go anywhere. Peter's going to finish up the soup, and we're going to show you the best ways to serve the soup in just a little bit. But we are back in the kitchen with Peter Langlois from the Smithsonian Cafe and Chowderhouse. We're finishing up the gluten-free butternut bisque. Now you've added the cream, I infer?
Yep.
And that's why it's a lot lighter in color.
Yep.
So if people missed it earlier, take us through the steps again. It started
vegetable stock and cubed butternut squash, just brought to a boil and cooked until the butternut squash is pretty much broken up.
And if people think they need an immersion blender stick to do something like this, they're wrong.
No, it really just broke up this smooth, just hitting it with a regular whip.
That's impressive.
Yep. And
now from there, you then added this roux. And now what's in this roux?
The roux is the gluten-free rice flour with oil. And like I said, it took only a small amount to thicken it up to this thickness because it's a very pulpy vegetable.
Now, is this something you have to make new every time, or can you have a roux and you
Nope.
save it in the fridge?
It'll hold, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you freeze this?
Sure. Yep, there's nothing really that can go bad or that gets interrupted by freezing or refrigerating, so.
All right, and now we have the finished soup with the cream, and then to serve it, you have a popover.
I warmed one up for you right there.
I can't assume that this is gluten-free.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
No, this is.
No, we're
chock full of
currently
gluten.
working in our test kitchen to do gluten-free popovers at our chowder house, but
You know what? Give me all the gluten you got in this. It's fine.
yeah.
So normally you can, if you want to get really fancy at home, you can serve it in a popover.
Not
or
in a
to the
popover.
side?
We serve it on the side, and people dip.
Gotcha.
People break up the popover and dip. So
Looks really
those
good.
are hollow. It's not like a loaf of bread. It's
I'm gonna rip this open so everyone
Yeah.
at home can see it. Look at that. It's flaky. It's like not phyllo dough. How would you?
No, it's made actually with a pourable batter. So it's like an egg and milk batter with some flour and salt in it. Very very simple ingredients, very simple preparation. They're a little bit tricky to make at home. You need to have a convection oven and so.
Well, maybe I'll try it sometime.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much.
Thank
it's
you.
a pleasure to have you
Got
here.
some in the bowl for there if you
All
want
right,
to give
I'm
it a
trying
shot.
And for a copy of this recipe and more, you can visit mymassappeal.com later today. All you have to do is click on Taste Appeal.